And we're live. The Justin Spaulding episode 15. I'm wearing the same shirt as last week, episode 14. It's because they were actually shot the same day. If you're watching this, I've been in Hawaii now for like 10 days maybe. Left for Hawaii on March 20. The night of 25th, went to O'Hare. Slept the night in a hotel down there. Early in Chicago. Early on the 26th, flight went out, connected in Phoenix. Had a quick 1 hour little layover, grabbed some food probably. You know, I'm talking right now. I'm talking before the trip, but I'm also trying to get in the zone of like what that might have looked like. And then, hey, Friday the 26th, flew from Phoenix to Hawaii, and now we've been in Hawaii for 10 days. So if you're joining, we're building off the last episode where we were talking about Prime Painters, how we started it, and there's more questions now that I'm going to go through and answer. This episode might be a little bit shorter episode. I don't know. We're going to see where this goes. Modine had a good question. He's like, was your goal with Prime Painters to be able to, provide your properties, right? That's what you're saying, right? To be able to provide your properties that service. And yes, that was one of them. And the other one I just straight up said, I said, look, it was also to grow it. I ideally want our properties to be like 4%, 2% of the total revenue of Prime Painters. I want Prime Painters to be like 2023, I want to be doing like $5 million a year revenue. 2026, I want to be doing like $20 million of revenue somehow, some way. Because I want to be able to take the 20% profits, 15 to 20% profits on that money, and I want to dump it all into real estate, right? On top of the money that I'm already making, dumping into real estate. And I have a lot of fun starting businesses, operating businesses, owning businesses, building teams. So I get to be honest, I wouldn't be able to do it just for the money. The money makes it a lot more fun and worth it, obviously, and I'm not going to do it for free, but I get a lot of reward and the feels for just building a business. I leave here, I'm like excited. Like I'm excited. I'm as excited when like Ryder comes in here and gets like a $2,000 or $3,000 paint job. I'm like, I get as excited. Or when I was a sales rep last year for a little while, when I'd go out and personally get a $1,500 paint job, I'd be like as excited or thrilled, maybe even a little bit more thrilled than actually closing like a $30 million deal that we closed in January. So it's just like part of it's just the game to me. So, but ideally, this company, we're going to grow this company. I really think there's another reason I started Modine, not just for the money to roll into real estate, not just for the ability to provide better services to our buildings. I also really saw something missing in the contracting industry across the gamut. Whenever we would call someone to come out, hey, check out a roof, check out these windows, we want these replaced, we need new doors, we need new carpet, we need paint. Like it would take so long just to get contractors out to give us a bid and get an estimate. And this is like big job, like this is scale, like they'd be like $15,000 paint job, a $400,000 roofing job. And we couldn't get someone to show up on time to give us a bid. So after all these years, I'm like sitting here, I'm like, okay, there's an opportunity here by just providing a better experience to people. So when we get a lead now, I'm like, Ryder, you better get back to these people like right away. Because if you get back to the people right away, you're going to win a lot of the bids. And you can be priced 2 times or 2.5 times more or 1.5 times more than the other person. But it doesn't matter because the other person might not even be able to get a bid because a lot of times that phone rings, we pick up. I'm like, if a lead's not responded to in the first 2 or 3 minutes, like we're not doing our job. We want to answer the phone right away or give them a call back right away, not 6 hours later, not 2 days later, not 2 weeks later like we've been treated sometimes. We want to call them back right away, set an estimate up right away. Like so soon that it's uncomfortable for them, like, oh, holy shit, I didn't realize, like, I thought that this contracting world worked like this. Like, we reach out, we don't hear from you for 2 weeks, then it can't be another 2 weeks till we get out there, right? So I can't believe, like, the holy crap responses we've gotten to calling someone back in a minute or answering the phone the first time and saying, hey, Prime Painters, and talking, hey, what would you like done? Do our regular thing and say, okay, I can be out there this afternoon at 2. I can be out there tomorrow morning at 8:30 or 9. What works best for you? And they're like, what? You're talking about today or tomorrow? It's like, yeah. Right? So right there, we leave an impression that like we're on top of it. Now, some people could be like, oh, that makes it seem like you're not very busy, not very good. Dude, whatever. Like whatever. That's your excuse. A professional company can be busy and still, get to those things. So I just knew there was a huge opportunity just by giving people a call back and getting out there to give them an estimate right away that we would be able to close a lot of jobs and then provide a really good experience. So, we had another lady that, we went out and painted her whole house last fall. And we painted her deck and her railing. And the railing, for whatever reason, failed. So like this spring she called and said, I'd like to get my 5-year, because we offer a product that has like a 5-year warranty. They pay a little bit more, but there's a 5-year warranty, right? It's 2 coats and they pay a little bit more. Well, she didn't have the 5-year warranty included, right? So I go out there, I'm looking at her contract. Hey, you didn't pay for the 5-year warranty, right? But we painted the lady's whole house and it was just last year. I'm looking at the house. I'm like, I know she's got more stuff that she's gonna want to pay. It's a nicer house. Like she owns some other and I would just do this anyways. But in my mind, I'm like, okay, there's an opportunity. We have to, number one, fix our air, and then because most other people would just put up a fit, right? So I told her, look, like you don't have your warranty. There's no warranty with this contract. Like this was a 1-coat job. Sometimes this happens, especially on decks and porches, and that type of it takes a beating, and it always has taken a beating, and it always will take a beating. And she's like, oh, okay. And I said, but, because it is only this 6-foot area and, whatever, like, and because we also were pushing it, like getting to be too late into the year, like, we'll come out and fix this for you. She said, oh my God. And she just like lit up, right? So like, that's a great customer service, right? She's always going to call us whenever she has it. Because even if like so what? We screwed up on 4 feet of a total $5,000, $6,000 job. We screwed up on 4 feet. Get back out there and fix it. These guys, she's like, these guys stand by their work. Like they respond. They didn't just ignore me. They came back out after I got paid. Like after I paid them, like 6 months after I paid them, I didn't even have a warranty. They're gonna provide it because I'm not typically gonna do this. If it's a 1-coat job, you want a 1-coat job, we recommend 2 and pay for a 5-year warranty, and you don't do that, and it's your whole house. Not probably gonna go paint your whole house. Just say no. I'm not just playing a nice guy card here. I mean, but we took care of her, right? And it's just kind of going above and beyond. I think I just going back to the whole moral of this point or story, there's just a huge opportunity there to be able to provide really, really, really good customer service in that contracting space. And so I wanted to be able to go after that a little bit. Let me go back into the questions because I know I was still wrapping up a few of the questions from last week. Number 3 on Google right now? It's not good enough. What, Janesville? Yeah, that'll get better. Who's 1 and 2? Oh, that's okay. Oh, we're the number 1 like painting company. So the other 2 are like actual paint stores where they just sell paint. They just sell paint. So Sherwin-Williams, they sell paint, and Hallman Lindsay, they sell paint. We got 12 reviews. Hallman Lindsay has 14 reviews. Sherwin-Williams has 60 reviews. But we're the top vendor on the list. Yep. All right. So then another question that we started to get into here was, do you plan to keep Prime Painters local, or do you want to scale it to the max? And so I've already thought about this. My idea is that wherever we're buying properties, the Prime Painters are going to end up following. So we've already been looking in Iowa. We've already been looking in Northeast Florida. And when we get a property that's scaled large enough, 200 units, 250 units, which when we make a jump to something that's outside 2 hours, 3-hour drive away, it will be 200, 250 plus units. I'm going to probably come right behind that. And because our infrastructure at the Spaulding Group level is pretty good, as we grow and we grow that distance, that'll be a little bit more of a jump. But we've gotten it to be over the last couple of months here we've got really good people. Our processes are running pretty smooth. The day-to-day management of the properties don't have to do as much. It's a lot of the finding the deals that I'm doing and still raising the money and all that stuff. And obviously overseeing the deal still and all that stuff. Yes, I'm very engaged there. But I will follow and start another, Prime Painters Florida or whatever. It'll just be Prime Painters in Florida, Prime Painters in Iowa, wherever it might be. Yes, we'll start at another location. That's my plan. I don't know if that'll be in 2 years or 3 years or 5 years or 6 years. I wouldn't have guessed 2 years ago that I was going to start a painting company. Like, people thought I was crazy when I started this painting company, Modine.
Why?
They're like, dude, you have real estate, you have these investments, you're doing all right. You're gonna go start a painting company? Really? Like you're gonna start a paint? Like I just decided to go start a painting company. People thought I was nuts for starting a painting company. I would have never imagined 2 years ago that I was gonna start a painting company. So I don't know when, but I would imagine that yes, we will have more than just this location in southern Wisconsin. And in southern Wisconsin, like we might like it's getting to be a drive over to Waukesha on some of our properties in the Milwaukee area. So at some point, and like we're starting to provide services and do estimates over there for retail. So if we grow a big enough business over there, we might have another office over there too. So we'll for sure have more than just this one location. I'm 93% certain on that. Let me see what other questions we had. That's a great question though. Because once again, I'm also thinking about when you build assets, once again, it comes down to scale again. I talk about it all the time. Anytime you have more scale, it's going to be more valuable to the marketplace. So at some point, whether, I sell prime painters or we have private equity come in or, whatever it might be, because we changed the game, I want to have a maximum valuation on the company. And the bigger you are, if you have processes and people and processes, especially the processes in place and the standards, and you have a successful company, the more revenue you're doing, the more earnings you have, the more value it's going to be. The multiplier will be larger for a $20 million company, $100 million. The multiplier on your earnings on an exit will be higher in a $5 million company than it will be in a $500,000 company. It'll be higher in a $20 million company that does $20 million a year revenue than a $5 million company. And we should actually talk earnings, right? So earnings. A company with $100 million of earnings, which is essentially cash flow, is more valuable. We'll get a higher multiple on those earnings than $4 million of earnings. So, and I once again, I like the challenge. This is like my new sport, so I for sure see it growing. All right, another question. Let me get to it. I got to pull it up on my phone. So, how have you gone about hiring and knowing what roles you needed for that business? So, I talked a lot about the last episode. It came down a lot to the course, and I really followed their model, right? I'm not creating something new here. I'm not inventing. I think I can run it better, and I think I can do better. But it's really starting with someone else's idea. But for me, it's just I look to see where the bottlenecks are, and then it's like, what can I do to release that pressure there and open that up so now more can flow through it, right? So is it the production side? Well, if it's a production thing where we're booked out like 90 days, 120 days, we need more people that can produce more of the work. Because if we can if we can do all those jobs that we originally had scheduled in 90 days with the guys we have now, if we double our capacity, and when I say double our capacity, we have twice as many painters, maybe another part-time production and project management person, and 2 other marketers and another sales rep, we can take that actually we wouldn't even need more sales because if we're sales are booked out that far. But if we can take that production and do that same production, and if it's $200,000 over, each 30 days that we can do, right? That means if we have 90 days on the books, we've got about $600,000 of work on the books. If I can increase the capacity to be able to produce more and produce that, I say $600,000. If I can produce that $600,000 in 1 month or 1.5 months versus 3 months, right? Now we increase production. Now we've got growth, right? So that's how I know where we need to hire, who we need to hire, when we need to hire them, when we start to get, if we don't have, now on the other hand, if we have production team, painters in this scenario, the production team, and if they're producing work at a rate right now that, let's just say, for example, we're only booked for the next 2 weeks. I've got 8 painters. Well, now I know that tells me I need more on the books than that. I need to have a month and a half, 2 months, whatever. I need more on the books than that. That tells me I need more marketing. I need more sales reps. And it also might mean that I need more leads. So where can we find more leads, right? And if we're not getting them through paid avenues, if Home Advisor, Craft Jack, Facebook, if they're not giving us enough, we don't just put more money necessarily behind Home Advisor or something like that, but we could put more money behind Facebook. And then we probably put more time, effort, and money between door knocking, cold calling, getting out in the neighborhood, right? Branding to try to get more leads, right? And then as we get more leads, obviously we'll need more sales reps, like I said before. That will lead to more jobs. Now, hopefully, we'll start to take our calendar and we'll be booked not just for 2 weeks, but now we'll be booked for 6 months. So once again, it's now I'm booked for 6 months. Now what am I going to go back to, Modine? If I've been booked for 6 months, I'm probably going to get more production and open our capacity, right? To then get that back down so we can do that 6 months worth of more work that 3 sales reps are producing and do that in 2 months or 3 months. And now in 2 months or 3 months, and maybe now we're doing 2.2 million in that time frame, right? But the other question is does our market support that? What does the market support? So you got to be able to look at all those things, and you just got to have an idea of, where you need to hire, what you need to hire, what roles. And if you realize that, hey, we're booked about a month and a half out, which is, hey, that's good. That's where we want to be. We want to stay there. Maybe we don't want to be. We don't need any more production right now. We don't need any more sales right now or leads or anything like that. But we're messing up a lot of our jobs. We have unhappy customers, right? So you need to focus on who is producing the jobs, and maybe you need to make a switch, or whoever's managing and overseeing those jobs and the people that are doing those jobs, maybe there needs to be a switch there. Or maybe the sales rep needs to do better in the scope of work. So the answer isn't always hiring more people. It's where in the playbook, where in the process is there stuff going wrong? And then is it we need to focus more on our processes and our standard operating procedures? Or is it, hey, we're at capacity, or we have too much capacity, or where's the problem, right? But that's how I would look at it. And that's how I know who I need to hire, when I need to hire them. This is a good question. So if you have very little knowledge when you started your company, how did that impact the approach to starting the company and hiring people? So this applies to any business, right? Once again, I truly believe you can truly learn by the things that are out there, courses, finding mentors that are successful. The fastest way I learned was obviously the courses accelerated a lot, but then actually get to doing, right? And make mistakes here and there and get in the weeds and have an idea how all these processes work. So it had an impact from the standpoint of I had to get caught up. And then it's okay, do I want to make mistakes for a year and a half, 2 years, big mistakes? Or do I want to pay for a course or mentor or something that will accelerate that time frame so I won't make some of those mistakes and I can accomplish in 4 months or in 6 months what most people hope to accomplish on their 10th year, right? So number one, I'm always going to be able to, I want to pay to play. I always want to pay to play because it's going to accelerate what I'm doing, right? I will pay that person for advice, right? Or I will work for them for free or for very little for that advice to better myself. How it impact from a standpoint of hiring people? Well, there once again, I had to hire people based on a feeling that I had from if I don't truly know all the ins out of painting, I got to hire someone that I think is qualified. Now they'll tell me they're qualified, but do I think they're qualified? Well, I'll never really know. I just heard Ryder ring the bell. Did you sell a job? Well, don't ring the bell unless you sell a job. We got a bell for Ryder in the office now so he's got a bell now when he I'm telling the podcast when he sells a paint job, we got a bell for him that he rings. So he rang the bell on accident, I guess. He didn't actually sell a job. But when when I'm sitting in that chair interviewing that person, how am I going to judge? Yes, we could do a working type interview or whatever, but even then, I could still be slightly fooled because I don't necessarily know all the little small steps of painting. So I had to really go off of what are my core values as a person. What are the core values of our company? Do I think that this person is genuine, telling me the truth, and have those core values? And then we just got to, when I hired, I just took a stab at it and I said, hey, let's roll. Now, I hired 2 guys to start. One of those guys was only with us for 2 months for a very specific reason that pissed me off, and he's gone, right? I mean, he just did one of the no-nos that you just don't do, and I don't need to say it on the air, but he's gone. The other guy's still with us, right? So if I bet 50% with people, I'll take that every single day. But a lot of it's you got to take a swing. You gotta take a swing on some people. We probably hired before we hired the first guy. We probably interviewed maybe three people total. And then obviously it's questions. It's, when I'm interviewing people, I'm very I tell them what our core values are. Actually, I don't tell them our core values first. When I pick up a phone for an interview, I say, hey, just this is still a good time, because we'll do a phone one first, and then we'll do in person. And I just usually start by saying, hey, is it still a good time to start talking? Wadeen, this is a little bit different with you because you're like a working interview basis. And it was a little bit different. Ryder was kind of similar. But hey, does this time still work for you to talk about such and such role with our company? Yes, yeah, it does. Okay. Tell me a little bit about yourself and what attracted you to the opportunity. And then I just sit and listen. I want to get them talking first because if they hear me talking, and so much of my stuff is out there that if people Google me, they can tell me the things that I want to hear because so much of my stuff is out there. But I want to see how their body, how they compose themselves, how they, I want to hear in their voice, I guess, how composed they are, how they talk, in what manner they talk. I listen to the pace at what they talk. And then when I meet people in person, I watch how fast they walk. If there's a super slow walker coming through here, they're probably not going to be hired. I need people that can move, man, and walk with a sense of urgency. I had someone that interviewed great. They walked out of here they interviewed great. This was for a painter role. They interviewed great on the phone. They interviewed great in person. They had a pretty good, resume, and I was excited. And then they left, and I walked out with them. They were already sitting in the room when I got there in person. Right, our team already had them in the room. I walked out with them, and they just I was 10 paces ahead of the dude. I'm like, dude, you can't. I'm like, he lost me there literally by the speed at which he walked. Right. So then I'll let them tell me about their experience, what they're looking for in a job, why they were attracted to this job that we had posted. Basic questions like that, get a conversation going. And then I'll ask them what their core values are. And this is still even before I've really gotten into anything about our company, our story, and what our core values are. I don't want to tell our core values first because then they're just going to repeat, I work hard. And obviously it's a cliche, everyone's gonna be like, I'm a hard worker. But sometimes they'll really say, and they'll use examples in their work experience or in their life of how they actually, implemented and acted on their actual core values of what they're telling me. And so when they do that, that impresses me, right? So it's, once I let them hear once they tell me their core values, then I'll get into our company story, my vision. I share the vision, and hey, there's gonna be a lot of opportunity here. We're fast moving, I tell them our core values, and I say these are musts. I don't care as much about how much you know about the actual job, as long as you can work hard. You have these core values, because if they have those, we can work with it. We can find a way. If they have a whatever it takes type mentality, they're gonna do whatever it takes. We'll do whatever it takes. We're gonna figure it out. So it's a long way to answer the question, but it's just. I don't think it impact, not having the knowledge whether I have the knowledge or not of what I'm doing doesn't really impact me with hiring, because I'm looking to hire people who are really just good people, work hard, results driven, willing to learn, willing to just step in and do whatever it takes. And that's why Modine didn't even have an interview really. It just he got in here and was willing to do whatever it takes. He was working for free for a little while. Every now and then I'd throw him $100 bill. But I'm looking for that more than anything anyways, even whether I know or don't know anything. And in fact, if I don't know anything about the company, I want to make sure that my core values with that person are even more aligned, so that there's even a little bit more trust there as they get started, because we got to walk into this thing together, and they don't want me to leave them out to dry. I don't want them to leave me out to dry. So when it comes to the knowledge about the painting industry or whatever company, and it comes to hiring people, that shouldn't really matter. In 98% of the scenarios, it just shouldn't matter. And ever since we've started to focus on the type of person and who we're hiring based on their core values and the type of person they are versus their specific skill set, we've come way far. We've advanced so far as a company in the last year and a half doing that. So that's a great question though. Then there's a question: how involved are you with the company? Have you ever used a paintbrush? I think I talked about this last time. No, I've never actually used a paintbrush. I've never done any scraping, sanding. I've never done any power washing. I've never used any of the tools that are in our back shop once. I've driven the trucks a couple times, but I've never done anything. So I'm more of a strictly, more of the manager. I do a little bit of the project management. So I do that. That's where I do have the hour and a half to 2 hours a day on average, if that. I spend my time there checking in with our guys, making sure that, because I'm not doing any sales. Ryder's doing sales. We got our marketers doing the sales, right? So the sales is covered. The accounting end, Ava and her team, like they do the accounting, the HR process. I'll do a little bit of the interviewing and stuff like that once we select and go. Michelle, who's in our HR department, accounting department, admin, she's kind of a utility player, does everything, crushes it. She kind of takes from there, gets the person on board and all that. So I do a little bit of the hiring process for Prime Painters. I do a little bit of the project management. We've got some really good guys right now. We've got some good systems in place. So 1 out of 15 jobs I'll have to show up to in person. If I have to show up to it once, I usually have to show up to it 2 or 3 times because it's a big enough job or whatever, and we just need to make sure that the communication is like a glove and we're all on the same page. But most of our jobs that are like $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 and they're interior painting or exterior painting, I don't even have to show up. I just got to communicate with the guys. Hey, this is what we have lined up when, and I communicate with the customers. Hey, this is when we're going to be out there, because that's kind of what the project manager does. They communicate with the customer when we're going to be out there. They communicate with the team where they're going to be and when they're going to start the job, when they need to be done by, et cetera, et cedera. If there's any problems in the job, usually they contact me. Sometimes they'll contact Ryder. Ryder's also starting to, he's sales rep, but he's also starting to straddle the line a little bit of doing a little bit of the project management for me as well. So he's almost kind of taken up 2 spots in the bus a little bit, 2 spots in the plane. So yeah, I'm relatively, but I do pay attention to the numbers. I pay attention to how many leads are coming in. I pay attention to our sales. I pay on a daily basis. I pay attention to what our accounts receivable is and how much cash we've got in our accounts all the time. I'm always watching our income statement, our balance sheets. That stuff I'm watching all the time. Always. And we had, about 2 weeks ago, I had a meeting with the accounting team on this, and I said, hey, we need to make sure that this thing's up to date, because this is how I know if this thing's sinking, swimming, going left, going right, whatever, is just by looking at the numbers. And so I can't, we were on about a 10-day delay, it seemed like, as far as with our income and expenses and stuff. I'm like, guys, I want this live time. As we're updating stuff, as we get, I want it all live so that I can jump in and I know about ballpark where we're at. So we haven't got quite to the point where we're live, but we're much closer, where I can just jump in and see the financials. And that's how it's gotten with the properties too. Obviously I'm very involved in acquisitions, getting new deals, going to find new deals, getting investors, getting the money locked down, with CJ and her team operating the deals, right? She's our chief operating officer. She operates, Ava does accounting. I'm higher level looking at stuff. I'll spot check things every now and then, just randomly go into an income statement, look, something doesn't look right. I'll ask a question to CJ, our COO, Ava, our controller, or Michelle, Little, our regional manager. I'll say, hey, what's going on here? Just dropped in and just wanted to see, right? And I just ask questions so that everyone knows I'm watching, I'm paying attention. I obviously will, look at every single day, looking at our delinquencies in the properties, looking at our collections, looking at our cash accounts, looking at our balance sheets almost on a daily basis, looking at how many leads and guest cards we've got over there, how many applications are in process, how many move-ins we have coming up, how many move-outs we have coming. So I can see these metrics that I watch, and then I know by the metrics, okay, I need to spend more time at Signature 23. Which about 3 months ago we had an emergency meeting, all right, we need to get this figured out. And now we're it's smooth sailing. We're getting it figured out, and we've corrected it. But those metrics that I was looking at were giving me warning signs. And when they give me warning signs, now that's how you have to scale. You gotta let your people do your thing. But then when there's warning signs, you need to now dive in. Hey, we need to get this figured out. Springdale, the apartment complex over in Waukesha we bought, going through a huge remodel. And once again, I know this is about Prime Painters today, but this is just about being hands-on as a business owner when you got a lot going on. And you're not always in the weeds. You gotta let your team do things. Springdale, we're behind pace there as far as revenue. We've done way more remodels than we ever thought we'd get done in the first 2 years. We're a year and a half in, and within, after 8 months over there, we did more than we thought we'd do in the first 2 years. Our vacancy has been high. I mean, we're only 80% occupied over there, 80 to 83% occupied. So I'm looking at this and I'm starting to see the warning signs. I'm like, all right, we got to straighten this thing out. So last week, I'm like, okay, who's on site and doing Saturday leasings, right? And on Wednesday. And so now every Saturday we're making sure that the leasing office is going to be full. We're going to do, showings all days of the week except for Sunday, essentially, to correct that, right? So I'm paying attention to leads, guest cards coming through, how many applications are being processed, and all that stuff, how many move-ins we have coming out, how many move-outs, to see what our plus and minus, our net is there. So I watched, to answer the question, once again, how involved are you with the company? And he's talking about Prime Painters in this scenario. I just shared with how involved I am with Prime Painters and Spaulding Group in the properties. You have to be able to. This is why my old show that I used to do, Balling with Spaulding, before I had content creators and stuff all by myself, I would always talk about income statements, balance sheets, and maybe we can talk more about those on this episode or this show as well if people request it and want to dive in and get my probably more enhanced view on them, because that show was created like 6 years ago now. What I look for and what these red flags are and stuff. But when you can read balance sheet, when you can read income statements, and you can pay attention to the 3, 4, 5 KPIs of your business, you can know where your attention needs to go as the boss, as the leader of the company. So that's a great question. But yeah, much more hands off on the Prime Painters side. And then let me see if there's any other questions. That might be it, to be honest. Just take a check quick. So there's another question on here. Let's see. What is the biggest thing you've learned after 1 year, and what changes are you making to improve? I don't know what I can say the biggest thing is I've learned, because I feel like the biggest thing that I learned is, it needs to be rephrased to, what's the biggest thing you're learning? I can't remember all the shit that went wrong in all of our companies every year, right? But we take action and we move on, and then we move on, and it's like, okay, I forget about it because we fix it, right? So in the moment, what is the biggest thing that I'm learning is on Prime Painter side, we're very inefficient changing over jobs. So when a crew finishes a job and they're done on a Monday night, we're very inefficient getting into the next job Tuesday morning. And when I say very inefficient, to 98% of the people, they'd be like, oh, if we could do it what I consider inefficient, they'd be thinking it's good. But to me, I'm like, there's a lot of room for improvement here because we're wasting time. So what we did was we got away from, because like guys would make, they'd run to Sherwin-Williams and they'd have to do this and they'd have to do that. So the biggest thing that we did was we got an inventory system in place. So we've got all consumable items right now in our back shop that they have to check in, check out inventory. The accounting gals will watch that, pay attention to that daily, weekly. And it's, getting to be a smart inventory type system, or lean inventory, I should say. So we don't have too much back there. And then Sherwin-Williams will deliver to us on a 12-hour notice, essentially. So implementing that so that the only time they have to go to the store is to buy paint for the job, to buy stain for the job, and to buy any primer for the job. Because we have 99% of everything else on our shelf. So now, instead of having to go to the store and get all this stuff and waste all this time, they can order the paint ahead of time, go pick it up, and not waste 35 minutes or an hour monkeying around at the store. Total. By the time they drive there, monkey around, get the stuff, load it up, Like, we got it all in the shop. It's on the shelf, right? We got barcodes, we got the name, we got the picture, like the magnet thing. Like, we got it. We're figuring that thing out. So that was one, because that was going to help us in our transitions. Right? And it helps just actually every single day as well, but especially in the transitions. The next thing is now, okay, how are we handling the equipment in between the transitions? So the consumables is one thing, which we have an inventory for, but how are we handling the equipment, stuff that we use multiple times across multiple jobs, right? The paint or tape, we'll go through a roll of tape on half of a job or a quarter of a job. We'll go through multiple rolls of tape on one job. So it's a consumable. The equipment is like the ladder. It's like the paint sprayer. It's like the paintbrush. It's like the roller grid. It's like our buckets, the drop cloths. It's the masking, the masker. It's the putty tools and the drywall tools. We're now looking at a system where each team is going to have its own tote system. So team 1 will have like 6 totes, and it's going to have one tote of the prep stuff, the next tote of the painting stuff, the next tote is going to be the drywall stuff, the next tote is going to be the drop cloths. And it's going to have the totes with the equipment in it. So now, instead of monkeying around and grabbing one thing and grabbing another thing, and I left this over here and I left that over here. All this shit goes in this tote. You put it in the tote. When you need it, you take the tote and the other tote that you probably need. You grab the totes, you stack the totes, carry the totes, or wheel the totes because they've got wheels on them. You take the totes into the job, you set the totes down, you open the totes up, and you got all your equipment right there. When the job's done, guess what? You put the crap back in the totes. And now you got it collected. So hopefully now all your stuff's always in one spot. And now hopefully that's going to eliminate a lot of running. So that's one thing that I've really and actually this is Levi. He owns a painting company as well. And since you own a painting company, I'm going to try to go back into, okay, so what else did I learn? I mean, I learned the change order thing was big. The change order thing to get our guys, I didn't ever imagine that being that big of an issue, but that was a big issue. We had to correct that. So I had to learn to get our guys to pay attention to change orders. If it's not on the scope of work, you got to follow the scope of work. Follow the scope of work, change orders, right? Mm-hmm. Guys wouldn't follow the scope of work at first. They'd kind of do their own thing, whatever. No, follow the scope of work. This is what we're doing because this is what the person wanted. This is what we sold them. This is what they're paying for. If we do more, we can't operate as a business doing more without charging more. It's not that I'm a mean person. I need to charge you if we're going to do more, right? So if we show up to someone's house and it says, hey, can you please move the furniture? Like they're going to get an extra charge for that. One chair, different. Right? But if like the owner was supposed to buy, the client was supposed to move all the furniture in all 10 rooms, they're going to get charged for us moving the furniture if they now ask us to move the furniture. It's fine. We'll do it. But you're going to get charged. I'm running a business here. I got employees to feed. I got rent to pay. I got vendors to pay. I've got contractors to pay. I've got to have a profitable business. Otherwise, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to do this anymore. I need to make money, feed my family. More than anything, Prime Painters is going to make money so we can buy more real estate. I'm not going to do it if I can't do that. I'm not going to provide all the opportunity and go through the headaches if I can't do that. So it goes back to, I learned that. Okay, like, are we taking off outlet plates? So that's fine. We don't have to. Like, we'll allow people to give the option to take off their own outlet plates because it'll save us a little bit of time if they want the absolute cheapest bid that we can provide. We're never the cheapest, I promise you that. But we can adjust things if you want to adjust it to be more competitive. Trying to think the other biggest things. I would definitely recommend, this wasn't something I learned because I did it right from the beginning, but I would definitely recommend doing the 25 to a 50% deposit right from the beginning in order to get on your calendar. So we tell people, like, sometimes people will push back because I get it. The industry that we're in, there are people that will take your money and run. But we say, look, like, if people push back and say, I'm not doing a 25% deposit, I'm like, then you're not getting on I don't care if you have a signed contract or not. You can have a signed contract. It's not executed until that 25% deposit's in and settled in our account. You're not getting on our production schedule until that happens. The nice thing about that is for those of you guys that are just starting the business where cash flow is a little bit tighter, you're getting front loaded some of that money to pay for the materials and stuff like that, pay for any equipment you might need, whatever. And now the rest of the job, most of that will be covered in that cost. I mean, if you get 25% up front, you should for sure have all your product costs covered. Because product, we talked about this in the last episode. Product costs should be between 10 and 15% of the job. So if you're getting a 25% deposit to a 50% deposit, right? 25% deposit will cover all your materials and then some. If you get a 50% deposit, now you're going to basically have all your expenses covered. Everything else is gravy. So you sell any paint job? Ryder just walked in for those people that not watching. Well, you can't see him anyways, but you sell any paint jobs today?
Oh, yeah. Well, we got to get the signature, but yeah.
And I'm talking about deposits. We got to do the deposit then too.
I thought you were on the phone with someone. I was like,
no. It's episode 15. Are you, so how you like the bell?
That's fantastic. That's the coolest thing we've ever gotten.
Ryder's got a bell. We got to mount it on the wall, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a heavy, heavy bell.
So Ryder's out there crushing it. All right, what other questions we got on this? That's it. So episode 15, right? This is episode 15. So if there's any questions from the first episode or this second episode on Prime Painters and the starting of it, please let me know. we'll go, we're just going to roll back into our regular Q&A show going forward from here, but we'll be able to pick up those questions. Please DM them to me, shoot them to us through Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn or email. Leave a comment in the video below. Please subscribe to YouTube. If you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, please go and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have some special stuff coming up this year, possibly a free real estate course that's 30 days long through YouTube every day on the day. Free real estate course. So please subscribe, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks so much for joining episode 15 of the Justin Spaulding Show.